These are the NFL MVPs over the last 12 years.
Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers.
Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
Lamar Jackson. Patrick Mahomes.
Tom Brady. Matt Ryan. Cam Newton.
Aaron Rodgers.
Peyton Manning.
There's clearly a pattern. The last 12 NFL MVPs have been quarterbacks. If you go back further to 2000, only 4 out of 24 NFL MVP winners have not been a quarterback. Those 4 were running backs. Adrian Peterson in 2012, LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006, Sean Alexander in 2005, and Marshall Faulk in 2000. And the thing is, it's not like we didn't have the opportunity to give it to someone else. Aaron Donald has had many dominant seasons. Derrick Henry had a 2,000-yard season. JJ Watt in 2014 could have gotten it. Cooper Kupp. I mean, there are so many people that could have gotten the MVP, and we would have all been like, okay, yeah, they deserve it. But that just didn't happen. The MVP is a QB award. 48 out of 69 MVPs have been QBs. But how did this happen?
Who's the MVP? You better believe it. Peyton Manning.
And oh, by the way, the first MVP trophy for a defensive player since Alan Page way back in 1971.
For Tom Brady, touchdown pass number 50, an NFL record.
Up to the 3, to the 1, touchdown Emmitt Smith, hello record.
Okay, so let me take you back to 1957. That's when the NFL MVP award, or more accurately, the Associated Press MVP award, first came into existence. And remember that information. This is a media award. Now, the inaugural winner, that was Jim Brown, a rookie fullback for the Cleveland Browns who absolutely dominated that season. 942 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns in just 12 games. And he didn't just win the MVP that year, he also won NFL Rookie of the Year. But Brown wasn't done there. He claimed the award again the following year, and then grabbed his third MVP in 1965, the same year that he retired as NFL's all-time leading rusher with nearly 12,000 yards. You see, back then, position diversity wasn't actually a real thing in MVP voting. I mean, just look at the numbers. Between 1957 and 1965, running backs won the award 5 times. Quarterbacks? They only managed to win it 3 times during that stretch. But then, things started changing. The award started becoming more quarterback-driven, a trend that really took hold through the 1980s. Now, there were a few exceptions, like kicker Mark Mosley in 1982. We could make an entire video about that. Yeah, a kicker won. And of course, there's Lawrence Taylor, the second defensive player to ever win it in 1986. He's still the last defensive player to take home the trophy. But here's the thing. These winners that I'm mentioning, they're really just anomalies, rare exceptions in what's essentially been a quarterback's award for the past 50 years. But in 1978, the NFL changed some rules that completely transformed the game, and it set the stage for the rise of the quarterback dominance that we're seeing right now. There were 2 really important rule changes. First, offensive linemen were allowed to extend their arms and grab defenders while blocking now. This change improved offensive performance because it gave linemen more control over the rushers, leading to better pass protection. This replaced the previous chicken wing style of blocking that they were doing. And the second is what's called the Mel Blount rule. It reduced the chunk rule from 10 to 5 yards. This limited the distance a defensive back could make contact with a receiver beyond the line of scrimmage. This change also increased the number of offensive opportunities that the quarterback had to pass, and it protected receivers from really physical play. Over the years, so many other rule changes have come in, like hits on a quarterback, fines for hitting the quarterback after they slide, protecting defenseless receivers, and many other things. But this was just the start of what opened up the passing game. And you see, before 1978, teams were just averaging 17.1 points per game. People call this the NFL's dead ball era. You saw a lot of running, which kind of corresponds to a lot of running backs winning the award. But these new rules, they gave quarterbacks more time in the pocket, allowed receivers to run routes, and defenders couldn't just interfere as much. And we also saw the West Coast offense emerge. It was pioneered by this guy, Bill Walsh. It sort of emerged as a new system that maximized the opportunity from these changes. The West Coast offense emphasized short, high percentage passes, quick releases. You still see it today in the NFL. This effectively used the passing game to replace traditional running plays, making it an extension of the run game. But this required quarterbacks to have precise timing, better decision-making skills, and effectively increase their importance of their position. Coaches would script the first 15 plays, aiming for a lot of first downs per game. And so what happened? You get quarterbacks that are just racking up all kinds of stats, especially in comparison to their other teammates.
Giants don't throw all that much, but when Sims does, it's to the right colored jerseys. Only 2 INTs and nearly 200 throws, 66%. That's the kind of numbers that can stamp your ticket for Tampa.
Rip has ripped the Cardinals. His best days as a pro
are against the Cards.
NFL quarterback stats have been increasing every single year for the last 50-some years. In 1978, quarterbacks averaged just 158 passing yards per game. That's now over 220 yards per game and is going to continue to increase. Completion percentages have also increased. In 1978, it was 53%. Now it's close to like 65%. That alone just shows how teams have evolved into more passing offenses. But this year, we've seen our fair share of run-dominated offenses, like Saquon Barkley with the Philadelphia Eagles and Derrick Henry with the Baltimore Ravens. But still, most teams are quarterback driven. I think most people know that, but here's also some other statistics just to prove it. Since 1950, the NFL has seen 562 quarterbacks throw at least 100 regular season passes. That's 6 million plus passing yards. That's ridiculous. Sure, scoring reached a low point in 1978, but that's only been going up. It saw peaks in 2013 and 2018. Even in the goal line, plays that would have been rushing touchdowns in the past are now short goal line passes. Touchdowns for the quarterback. The only team that's really an exception to this right now may be the Eagles. You see Jalen Hurts push it on the 1 yard line, or Saquon Barkley run it in with like 4 or 5 yards to go. Most NFL teams would pass on those downs. So this is also why the quarterback's value over the years has seen a massive increase. Contracts like Trevor Lawrence's 5-year, $275 million deal, or Dak Prescott's 4-year, $240 million deal. He's getting paid $60 million every single year. That's the market value. The trend of quarterbacks getting paid so much is so significant that team owners have even discussed the possibility of putting in a quarterback-specific salary cap. And a few years ago, that would seem like a ridiculous idea. But right now, it might actually be a decent one. Quarterbacks are one of the highest paid athletes in major American sports. They're getting like a basketball player salary for the sport that has 52 other players on the roster. And the salary cap increasing has helped all of this as well. So when you combine all of these things and the fact that quarterbacks are throwing for thousands of yards, visually speaking, it's pretty convincing to any NFL MVP voter that a quarterback deserves to win this race because they have thousands of yards. They get paid millions and millions of dollars. And the fact that NFL rushing backs aren't really considered of that much value as of late. Maybe we can actually blame Eagles GM Howie Roseman for building this strong of an offensive line with this great of an offensive line coach, which can oftentimes lead to the perception that you can replace any running back as long as you have a good offensive line. And the Eagles have done that. Since the time that they went to the Super Bowl and won it in 2017 to now, they've gone to the playoffs with many different running backs, but with a very solid and similar offensive line and the same offensive line coach. And so running backs and other position players, as a result, seem replaceable, which also increases the value of the quarterback. And on top of this, you have the media who love to talk about quarterbacks. Because why? They're leaders of the team. Their statistics are very fun to watch and talk about. Somebody throws a deep ball, it's great for TV and highlights. And you often see more deep balls and more interesting pass plays than somebody breaking some tackles or going for like a 70-yard rushing touchdown. It's very easy to market quarterbacks. They get the ball on every play. They touch it on every play. And so the media loves talking about them, which further increases their value to teams and further increases the likelihood that they win the NFL MVP, because oftentimes it's the same media people that are voting for the MVP. But the thing is, it's not like we haven't had any good non-QB MVP caliber players in the past. I mean, let's just look at a few of them. JJ Watt had a historically dominant 2014 season with 20.5 sacks, 78 total tackles, and 4 forced fumbles. He even became the first defensive lineman since 1944 to score 5 touchdowns in a season, including a pick 6 and 3 receiving touchdowns. Those are just insane numbers. He got 13 first place votes, the most for a defensive player since Lawrence Taylor. Most people thought he might actually end up getting it, but he finished second to Aaron Rodgers. Or Aaron Donald in 2018. His campaign was pretty insane. He recorded 20.5 sacks. He set the record for the most sacks in a defensive season by a defensive tackle. He won Defensive Player of the Year. That was no question. But he didn't even receive a serious MVP consideration despite being the only unanimous All-Pro selection that year. Or Derrick Henry in 2020. He ran for 2,027 rushing yards, 17 touchdowns. He became the 8th player in NFL history to break the 2,000 rushing mark. Derrick Henry was the entire Tennessee Titans team. It was just him. It was just hand him the ball and watch him run. He didn't even get a single MVP vote. Not a single one. Or Cooper Kupp in 2021. I mean, we all know a wide receiver was never going to get it, right? But arguably it was the greatest season ever by a receiver. He won the receiving triple crown with 145 receptions, 1,947 yards, and 16 touchdowns. He became only the 4th player since 1970 to lead in all 3 categories. He recorded 15 games with 90 plus yards, the most in NFL history. And he finished well behind Aaron Rodgers in MVP voting despite these achievements. I mean, there's probably other players that I could have talked about over the years. And yeah, did Aaron Rodgers have insane seasons those years? Yes. Did other quarterbacks have insane seasons? Yeah, no doubt. It's not like those quarterbacks didn't play well. But come on. Not even one out of these 4 examples a non-QB won the MVP. They did not even come close. But the current MVP voting process did have some changes in 2022. The Associated Press, which looks over the award, allowed its 50 voters to rank their top 5 candidates using a weighted point system. This was a big change. So for the MVP award, voters use a system where they give players 10 points for their first choice, 5 points, then 3, then 2, then 1. Other awards like Defensive Player of the Year use a 5-3-1 scale, so people can put their top 3 choices. And yeah, this is a great change. It's much better because it allows people to rank who they think deserves the award in order. But many people still feel that a system where players and coaches can vote for the MVP is more fair. In fact, many people think that it's the ones who have to line up across the field against these players and game plan for them that know who's good and who's not. They're the ones that should vote who deserves to win. The possibility of a non-quarterback winning the MVP has been discussed many times, but no one's really come close. And the last person to do it was Adrian Peterson in 2012. So something clearly needs to change. But until the actual voting process does, I don't think anything will happen.
An AP most valuable player is...
Okay, thanks for watching this video. This was made in December 2024. So let's see if Saquon or somebody else other than a QB will win the award. But as of right now, my prediction is that it's going to be Josh Allen. Let's see if I'm right. If you like this video and you came this far, I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe. It would help support our growth. Thanks.